Okay. All right. Oh, oops. Almost knocked the board over.
I'm going to be lower than you.
Coach's Chat is back. Episode 5, first one of 2024. The last episode, I was on the verge of just being sick during the Coach's Chat.
Watching it back, I was like, wow, you did a good job pushing through.
I had a crazy GI bug for 24 hours. After that Coach Chat, I went home, and it was the first time I threw up in years.
Throw up emoji. It was like that green.
Threw up emoji.
Like that green emoji, like the green, like.
Yeah, and we were talking about this. We're going to deep dive into a lot of nutrition things. But how interesting it's when you throw up, like the last thing you ate, like I'm very, I guess, sensitive to that now. And it's my favorite breakfast with eggs and pesto and some chicken, and I'm kind of turned off from that.
Wow. And you know what's funny is that you were sitting over here, and I was like,
you were far away from me.
I was sitting over here.
You didn't want to be close.
But I made it through. I mean, I feel terrible, but.
You carried the team in that one because I was.
Again, watching back, I was like, bravo.
Okay, so what we're gonna do today? This is an all nutrition focused episode. We're gonna deep dive some of our experiences. You have some unique stuff to share. I have some unique mistakes to share and some good gems. And we're gonna answer a lot of common nutrition related questions in the gym, out of the gym, just in life in general. So I thought it would be cool. We talked about this maybe, it feels like a year or two ago now.
Last year, yeah.
Maybe it was around prep for your wedding. But if you could summarize what we were kind of talking about there of maybe your unique journey and that aspect in which you were sharing about nutrition and a cycle of almost evolution.
Yeah. 50 years. No, just kidding. That was a long time. They're talking about it as a kid and as a teenager, even late teens into early 20s. I was definitely very lean all the time. I was a dancer. I did sports all year round, was very active. And I just remember always being able to eat a tremendous amount, whatever I wanted, and just always was very lean and small. I active body type, and metabolism was just through the roof, and that was great. And my parents never fed me any sort of junk. I wasn't allowed to have soda. I wasn't allowed to have any sort of colored cereal, like Fruity Pebbles and everything. But we definitely, as an Italian family, and traditionally we just eat a lot. It was just everything was gathering around food, just culturally. And then, of course, went to college and just kind of, didn't have a plan. In retrospect, I'm like, man, college kids, it would be so great to be able to have some sort of regimen when you go there. I never worked out after sports, after dance. I didn't go to the gym. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of ate everything, and you had the card and you just went. I remember there was a baked potato bar that I would hit up all the time. And then naturally, I probably, it wasn't freshman 15, it was more I don't even know, 20, 30 pounds. And then, it was very interesting too. I didn't realize it until the first time my parents came to visit me, and they kind of, very politely.
You saw it in their eyes.
I know, and I was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, and then, after college, it was just trying to backtrack, didn't want to go to the gym, didn't want to go to a Planet Fitness because of the typical, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to build my own program. And that's when the yo-yo dieting started. And it was just I had some great success. I had some not great success. And then wasn't until 30s becoming a coach here, and then just being around you guys, number one, learning a little bit more about it, because I remember always just being very resistant toward it, because I was nutrition was a big, hairy, scary word for me. And I was just nope. And then, now still have great strides, maybe a couple of steps back here and there, but a better base and knowledge for sure. Mm-hmm. And that's 40 years summed up at about 3 minutes.
Yeah, I remember you sharing and hearing there was a point in my life where I could just take for granted and eat whatever I wanted. And that was in my youth. And then I hit this point when I went away to college, like that evaded me a bit. And it wasn't as, once you put yourself in what I would consider like maybe like you were digging a hole, like, and then, the food but unknowingly. And then it was hard to climb out of, and it wasn't the same ease as before. And then came this cycle of like trying to lose it and like a weird relationship with nutrition and training and like, and I think that's a very common experience that folks and especially gals can kind of have or share in of like this aspect of we're not really maybe taught as much in our youth. And if you are, bless you. And then, that ability we take for granted, that metabolism and just lack of knowledge kind of catches up somewhere, and then what comes out of the other side of that?
Yeah.
I wish
I had that base before going to school. I remember I had friends that always went to the gym, and they would always be like, "Come to the gym," and I'd be like, "Nope, that's like just not me." And having this mindset of like, "Oh, I always did," was always active, and now it's crazy because like I couldn't imagine life without working out 3 to 5 times a week,
And I'll try to share something similar, maybe with a different view of like growing up. I grew up in a split home. Mom and dad divorced very early on, and my dad would pick us up every 2 weeks, and my dad would always take us to like, it would be like pizza on the first night at dad's apartment, and then the second night as we'd come back over here to Hudson to visit our aunt and uncle, it'd be like some form of fast food. So it's like it became this exciting thing every 2 weeks that you knew you were gonna get. And then growing up in mom's house, mom did the dinners. There wasn't a real big focus on breakfast or lunch. And I remember going through a teenage period of like iced tea and pretzel rods and just like, again, like you, fast metabolism, could just eat whatever, probably wasn't eating enough or like definitely not enough of quality. So it wasn't until I was in the military in my 20s, living on my own, that I was like, I have to learn how to do this for myself. So, and especially getting into the field of like food and nutrition and training and wanting to really optimize that, it was trial and error a lot throughout those times, and then obviously evolving it and kind of fine-tuning it over the next 20 years. So, and that's led me to where I am today with a lot of mistakes, a lot of things that have worked really well, and now coaching people through it for, almost a decade plus, seeing what works really well and obviously what doesn't as well, and what can be helpful for people. So we're gonna crack into some questions now. And we'll start with the first one being, do I need to eat breakfast? What are your thoughts here?
Well, before getting into a nutrition journey myself within the last 10 years, I did not eat breakfast, or I wasn't consistent with breakfast.
Yeah.
Busy lifestyle, it was just kind of like a get up and go. And then, so that made me fall into a trap of like, by 12 o'clock, I was so hungry that it was just like, it just, it didn't work well for me. Now I 90% of the time eat breakfast, and the other 10% is like based on training time. If it's
right.
So with that being said, maybe a little like relative, but what the positives are, gets metabolism going, it sets you up for success and like better choices throughout the day. You make a good choice first thing, then you're more likely to make better choices throughout the day.
100%. I'm a big proponent for saying like, yes, eat breakfast. And even if you do prefer fasting, I think that, manage your time window where maybe you eat, it ends earlier in the day, and then you can eat a breakfast to, like Abby said, get high quality nutrients, start your day with ample protein and things that are gonna serve you and get your metabolism going. And I think we could also kind of allude into how you start your day matters too. So growing up, you said no cereals for you, so actually
I should say no bad cereals.
Bad cereals, okay.
Yeah.
So there was cereal.
There was like Cheerios and stuff, but not like the colored,
the specialties, which are really sugar and additives and little value there, which can form a pattern over years of like eating for enjoyment and just that quick lights on effect. So starting our day the wrong way, which could be fat storing, be mindful of this, and I've met a lot of people like this who just get a bagel with either cream cheese and a coffee. And what we're really doing there is we're starting our day with a lot of empty calories in that bagel, a lot of calories probably from the bagel butter or bagel cream cheese, and it's going to likely become a fat storing mechanism for us, that being our choice, or something in that realm. Even like a cereal, it's really we're starting our day with carbs and sugars, and we're really low in protein, where we want to start our day heavy in the protein department. And if I could give guidance, 30 to 50 grams of quality protein. Doesn't need to be eggs, doesn't need to all be eggs, and a lot of nutrients around this time too. Fruits, some veggies if you're veggies, and some healthy fats in there as well. That, starting your day that way, is so optimal. Sets your day there, like you feel good. You want to then follow that up with another good meal. So I'm a big proponent for have breakfast. Yeah.
And what do you eat for breakfast?
My breakfast is almost always the same, and it will likely be, to hit that protein target goal, it will be a combination of probably 3 whole eggs. I'll crack the 4th. I always say this: crack the 4th, and I'll give the yolk to my dog, which she knows. She hears the cracked egg, and she will wake up out of a nap to have it, which I love it. So you figure that there's 3.5 eggs. Then I have a carton of egg whites, which is purely protein, and I'll add 9 tablespoons of that to my little concoction as well. So that's another 15 grams of protein. And then likely 2 ounces, sometimes 3, of like chicken, really lean protein on top there. I'll sprinkle in a little bit of goat cheese, about 1 ounce, for some fat and some flavor. And then that's like my protein and my fats, and also what it's cooked in, a small amount of beef tallow. So that's my protein and fat. And then my carbs are going to be 3 different fruits, half a cup of blueberries, a cup of strawberries cut up, and then a cup of pineapple. And that breakfast, wow, like nutrients. I'm full. I feel amazing. That's 90% of the time. And then the other, again, eggs not always being the go-to. Sometimes if it's a non-training day, I'll go in a fattier protein, like a ribeye. I'll have about 7 ounces of a ribeye, sometimes with grass-fed butter, sometimes without, an apple, and some nuts. And that can be a breakfast. It doesn't have to be eggs or these like staple cereals. You?
Yogurt.
Yeah, I think that's definitely more common than what I was mentioning. Yeah.
I have a lot of, when working with folks, they're like, I'm sick of eggs, or like, can I have something else besides eggs? And it's really whatever you find that works for you. Again, it doesn't have to be eggs. Like sometimes I eat a salad with chicken, like pulled chicken on it, for mixing up the eggs. Sometimes I hard-boiled eggs with everything bagel seasoning, and I'll like dip in that. I love it. And then I should be endorsed by Oikos Pro, but Oikos makes a 20-gram protein yogurt. That's really good. It's 20 grams of protein, and then sometimes I add like a little tiny sprinkle of like my protein powder for like 10 more grams, and then I mix in strawberries and blueberries.
2 thoughts on this. One is, you mentioned the egg thing, like some people not being like, they're getting tired of eggs or whatever. A thought could be, whenever you're finding yourself getting tired of a particular thing, maybe you change up the strategy or mix it up just a little bit. And I'll share, this weekend, my girlfriend made me eggs, and I was like, your eggs always taste better than mine. The scramble with the goat cheese, and I was like, and she goes, yeah. And she just explained how she makes them, and she does something so subtle in terms of, I cook the eggs about halfway, and then that's when I add the goat cheese and the egg white, or something, some sort of delaying process. And I'll tell you what, like whether she is just a chef or that, it's just such a difference. So like the strategy and how I'm doing the thing. Maybe it's not scrambled, maybe it becomes sunny side up, right? So that's one. And 2, if you're not someone who usually has breakfast, it's hard for you, maybe you're not hungry, start with a liquid type breakfast to start. Yeah, it could be a smoothie. So you throw a little protein powder in with some fruits. Don't make it too dense, because you might not finish it, but you just get a couple, 2 or 3 different vegetables and fruits combination, or just one or the other with some protein powder. I would maybe just use water, maybe don't go dairy on that, and enjoy that. That could be a great place to start. And again, you're getting nutrients in the beginning of the day.
I just on I can't remember. Was it Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. I made those egg muffins that I haven't made in a really, really long time, and I did it with cottage cheese, like 0% milk fat cottage cheese. And it was really good. The only thing is, I don't think I greased the pan enough because it got stuck to it. But sometimes I'll switch. Sometimes I'll switch it up and I'll make like a frittata. I know. I was so disappointed. I was trying to.
Thoughts.
They were a little crumbly, but.
Let's shift into a quick question around eating and training, because these always come up. And if you work out or if you work out here, these are good things to know. So, Abby, what is the ideal pre-workout eating time? So I want to eat something before a workout. I'm going to exclude for a moment most of the 6:30 or the early bird crew here that comes here and say this is maybe, folks outside of you're waking up and it's the first thing you're going to do. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's an ideal eating window before working out?
I would say probably like 90 minutes before. Sometimes I have to stretch out a little bit more to 2 hours, but at least 90 minutes because I feel like an hour before is like cutting it a little bit too close.
Yes, and maybe what you're doing also matters too. So example is if we're going to do today strength training. Okay, maybe have a little bit more of a graceful window of like an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. If you're gonna do intense cardio or intervals or conditioning or running and even like burpees and moving your body up and down through space, definitely gonna wanna err more towards the 90 to 2 hour mark and not sooner, because the mistakes we can make here are...
Yeah, eating too close is with conditioning, like you just said, is too intense too quickly, and you get that sick feeling of it just being kind of like a brick in your belly, and I've had that happen before. I think that you said that I
had it a couple episodes ago. I mentioned we did a rowing workout, and I didn't manage my timing, eating well, and I needed to get that workout in. I thought I needed fuel, and I probably should have just not done the fuel. I would have been fine. And man, we did these I think 5 row repeats, and I knew very early on I was in for a different sort of challenge, But yeah, so if you eat too close and you're doing a lot of conditioning or circuit training, you might get a sick. You might get a sick, like I'm gonna vomit like feeling. The opposite, I think of Natasha in here, a member of ours who maybe works and maybe their lunch is around 12 or 1 and then comes to 6 p.m. and that was the last time you eat. If you don't, the other side of it is if you don't eat within a couple hours, you could feel lightheaded and dizzy, have no energy, and really just underperform and just not feel good and strong and vibrant.
That some people ask, like you said, the 6:30. Like if I work out at 6:30, I don't get up and have breakfast. I have collagen in my coffee, which people can argue whether that's providing in protein or not protein. I'll have like a little honey and like a little bit of milk in there, but that usually seems to satisfy me. And then I know some folks that wake up at 4 to eat before the 6:30, which is crazy. But somebody just recently asked me, what's the difference of somebody feeling like, why can I work out at 6:30 on an empty stomach, but I can't work out at 6 o'clock on an empty stomach? And it was, the best answer that I provided with them is that like you have the whole day, the whole day leading up to it, right? Like, why do I feel better working at 6:30 on an empty stomach, but if I work out at 6 o'clock on an empty stomach, it's like...
You've had a full day behind you, you haven't maybe put enough fuel in the system, you've gone through a multitude of experiences and stresses and adaptations, so it's definitely on us if we're working out later in the day to get proper fuel and meals throughout the day, and maybe a pre-workout snack or meal, we'll talk about those in a second. If you work out really early and you wake up, for us here, our first class is 6:30. And you don't have the appetite and you want to enjoy your coffee, totally understand. What matters a lot then is the last meal of the night before. So that last meal being in balance of good amount of protein and maybe some decent carbs, as that's going to provide you with energy, an energy source and a glycogen store, or where you're going to pull from in your system when you do perform in the morning in the workout. I'll throw this little kind of like asterisk and caveat. I too enjoy 2 coffees before I come into, say, workout, or I'm not usually a 6:30 workout person, every now and then, but accepting if I bring a stimulant into my body like coffee, and it's going to raise my heart rate and kind of get me going. And I am then going to do high intensity conditioning, circuit training, interval conditioning. I might get that like, whew, that response too. So it's important to know and to kind of accept these trade-offs of I want to wake up and, you know, I know for me the mental benefits of coffee and just how I feel and enjoy it, and the same for you. But also coming into, say, depending what your workout is, there's, I don't say pros and cons, but there's awarenesses to be had around those. And if you do work out really early, mindfulness around the last meal of the day. Before we talk about what to eat, let's talk about the same principles around post-workout. So what is an ideal post-workout window of consumption?
I guess I will say if you're having a protein shake, we always encourage people to have.
This is a great, I just want to pause, which I like that we know. Why would I have a protein shake?
So what a lot of people that I've run into use a protein shake for like a meal replacement, and it shouldn't be a meal replacement. So the protein shake that we again encourage people to take is to help with the recovery process. So a day like today when we're front squatting and we have muscle tissue breakdown, we want to start rebuilding them very quickly, so that we can help build muscle, help with muscle soreness, and also just get the fuel and the good calories back into the body right away.
Right, and to kind of piggyback off of Abby, all exercise, training, anything physical is breakdown of our tissues. So think about if this is a muscle, training just breaks it down. And then the fastest way to begin that recovery process is an immediate, within 10 to 15 minutes, a whey shake, a digestible, no milk, no dairy, added to that, water form, protein shake. And what that does is it begins the repair process right away, because really, I don't know about you, I don't want to eat a meal 5-10 minutes after doing any form of training. So it provides a buffer, because what that does is then it goes right to work to repair and recovery, and then gives you an extension of an hour to 90 minutes when I can then eat the meal that's going to be really important, the post-workout meal. These two meals, well, I should say three. Breakfast, pre and post-workout meals are if you train, are three of the most important things you could consume, and the mindfulness around them. And even the amount where your staple is around carbohydrates around these is really important. That's where the relationship is, because we want to talk about, are carbs bad? That's a question, and we're going to get to that in a second, because that always kind of gets brought up, and it's I think a misunderstood concept. But before we do, what are some examples of things that you would eat before a workout that you like, and what should we be eating before a workout, and what should we not be eating?
Yep. So outside of breakfast, it can always consist of a protein and some sort of good carbohydrate, staying away from fats, because fats are a little bit slower to digest, and we want to keep away from that around working out. Carbohydrates are an excellent source of energy, so that can be pre-workout, some sort of like fruit, which we both really love. Post-workout, if you want to go a little bit more dense, like maybe it's like a rice,
and that's the meal.
Or a high carb vegetable, or higher carb vegetable like broccoli or Brussels sprouts. But pre and post, protein and carbohydrates are the staples that we want to see in the workout, in the meals. And
to piggyback, the protein is always going to be a staple throughout, just all consuming. And the before is to aid in protein synthesis of like the breaking down and the repair of the tissues, the lean tissues. The carbohydrates are, like what Abby said, are going to be provided as an energy source. And we like fruits because they're simple. They don't sit heavy in the stomach, where if I had rice before a workout, well, that could kind of sit a little heavy and take a little bit longer to digest, versus even something as simple as applesauce, which is simple sugars that I'm going to utilize quickly within exercise. And then what she was mentioning, post-workout meal, is probably the most important and should be the biggest serving of carbohydrates in our day. So if I'm going to have the most carbohydrates, ideally that's where I would plant, say I'm going to eat the rice there, or goodness, if you wanted a sandwich or something, like you had that there. And then a good plan would be to taper your carbs down the rest of the day so you're not taking in excess energy, unless your plan is to bulk, which I'm running into fewer and fewer and fewer people who want to just put weight on or put size on. So this also leads me into the question, do you want me to take it or do you want to lead it, of are carbs bad?
Good carbs are not bad.
Well, what are good carbs? and what are I would say bad carbs, but less ideal carbs?
Less ideal. Well, we'll say good carbs first. I think that a majority of folks that I speak to don't realize that fruits are carbohydrates. Yep. Or have carbohydrates in them.
What do they think they are?
I think like sugar.
So fruits, here, this is a great myth bust, or unpacking. Fruits do have sugar. And I think people get consumed like, I don't want to have fruit because it has sugar. It also fruits come with fiber and sugar, and it's a different sugar. So those two combined, then say like a soda. The fiber and that sugar get digested and absorbed differently in your body, where it doesn't register as like sugar, as if like Skittles. Okay, so I do not be concerned about the sugars in fruits of blueberries and pineapple and strawberries and bananas. They have a slight insulin effect, sure, but there's fiber attached, which we need fiber for the GI tract and flushing waste out of our system.
So fruits are wonderful. Other good carbohydrates, like I said, some of the denser vegetables like broccoli or Brussels sprouts have a little bit higher carbohydrates in them, but good carbs. Sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, rice, quinoa.
This could be helpful to share with people. Think of carbs, or I should say, let's separate carbs into simple and complex. And well, what does that mean? Complex are more starchy like carbs. So let's kind of add to one of the ones you just talked about. Sweet potato, bread, rice, pasta. These are complex carbs. These are things in terms we would want after exercise, and we don't want in excess amount in periods of the day, or else we are going to be taking in a lot of energy that, if it goes unused, could easily get stored as body fat. And that's where I think carbs get a bad rap, is carbs are a source of energy. Energy unused can easily get converted to body fat. So that's complex. Complex carbs are more starchy, rich in definitely an amount of carbohydrate source in terms of exactly. Like a cup of dry jasmine is like that I do for post workout, is you're talking like 100+ grams of carbs. To do that in broccoli, to do that in blueberries is a very different game. Simple is let's go back to like good carbs. Fruits is a great example of simple carbs. Applesauce, these like fast digesting carbohydrates that have a little simple sugars, and fruits that your body digests, fibers that your body digests very, very quickly. There are less than ideal carbs. These are like your sodas, your candies, high fructose, corn syrup. They are loaded with sugar. They have very little to no nutrient profile, and they disrupt havoc on our health, our teeth, our skin, and should really be consumed in the most minimal doses. Now to share and be like, oh, I'm not a robot. I'll share like a very human experience. When I go to the movie theater, which is rare, like maybe it's at this stage, since the pandemic, it's like once every 6 months maybe. I will allow myself to have the movie experience with a soda, which I never drink, and a full popcorn, which I don't ever do, buttered and all that. And it's guilt-free because I know my nutrient profile, and it's a very rare occurrence for me, and it doesn't throw me off the wagon, but I'm human too, where I'll do that as well. So again, it's just being a little bit smarter, and then in awareness of around these things and seeing them for what they are. Again, a girlfriend with 2 small kids, I can see how, and I give her such credit. She does such a good job of these things that they should eat less than. are treats.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, and they even communicate like eating all these right things, and then at the end of the day, the very last thing is, Mom, can I have a treat? And it's like, okay, well, what are we thinking about? And they get to pick a treat if they want one, if they even remember. And it's contained, and they know her 4-year-old has an awareness around healthier foods, not in a way where it's like, oh my God, she shouldn't. It's almost like beautiful that she has an awareness as a young child around healthy foods.
Mm-hmm.
It's inspiring.
Aw.
Yeah, it's beautiful.